When I was a kid, I used to get so excited I would throw up. My mom first noticed this when I was 4 at my brother's second birthday party. She found me bawling and throwing up in the corner because watching my brother slowly open his presents was too much anticipation for me to handle. My parents discovered a pattern and became more vigilant to prevent these incidents. I wasn't allowed to open the mail in case we got an invitation to an event. And I wasn't told we were going to Disneyland until we were almost there. To keep my impulses in check, my parents often said things like, "How does your body feel?" Or "Touch with your eyes, not your hands." Socially, I was doggedly determined to make friends. I gave goldfish crackers to preschool bullies so they would like me. They didn't. To my fellow 5-year-old peers in ballet class, I offered pointed critiques on routines, thinking I could help. They weren't interested. Instead, I played with my little brother, who was fiercely protective of me, and I loved reading and writing where I escaped. This was the beginning of my lifelong quest for belonging and for love, striving to understand how to be myself and have a brain and a body with no filter to an onslaught of feelings and thoughts all the time. It wasn't until I started first grade that my parents first realized that some of my quirks might not be as normal as they thought. This made the doctor's attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD, diagnosis easier for them to accept. We went through a whirlwind of every dietary, herbal, and therapeutic treatment they could afford. They ended up putting me on medication. In second grade, I started treatment with Adderall, and I'll never forget the only day I've ever taken that drug. One day. My mom jumped when she entered the living room because I'd been so still and quiet, she didn't realize I was home. "How is school? How does your body feel?" she cautiously asked. It sounded like she was talking in slow motion. I was heavy and empty, like someone had unplugged my foot and drained everything from inside me. "I feel like I'm a black hole, Mom." Tears in her eyes, she took my hand, we stormed upstairs, and she dumped the entire bottle of Adderall into the toilet. I watched the pills that looked like little brown candies swirl away. Listening to my parents yelling at the doctor on the phone in the other room, I wondered if Adderall was the normal that other kids felt every day. What was normal supposed to feel like? And would I know it if I felt it? How do you know what normal is like if you've never had it before? Is it something everyone else is just born with and only I needed pills? A few weeks later, we tried the only other ADHD medication on the market, Ritalin, which offered its own side effects and changes in routine. The biggest impact was having to take my second dose at school, which meant I had to go to the school nurse, making me late to lunch. My already tenuous social life took a serious hit. Every day I would stand, lunchbox in hand. I would pretend to wave at invisible friends in random corners of the cafeteria until one of the teachers forced kids to make space and let me sit with them. Despite the social ramifications, those small square pills helped me sit still long enough to observe social interactions, finish homework and trains of thought, and express myself better. I was still lonely, but I started to enjoy second grade. I felt more confident, grounded, the way I now assumed everyone else saw the world. In junior high, I was upgraded to a new drug, Concerta. It reduced my appetite, so for several years I longed to gain weight and grow breasts because junior high. Taking my medication became an invisible routine to the outside world. I just took one pill with breakfast. It was worth it. This prescription made it possible for me to function. I didn't feel different anymore, and I liked it. Despite the improvements, medication only kept my ADHD in check. It wasn't a prescription for belonging, which still felt like an unattainable goal after so many failed attempts with peers. My old tricks hustling for worthiness persisted. To try to fit in, I imposed my will on the band's saxophone section. I offered gum and help to anyone willing to put up with me and spend time with me and my hidden ADHD. The summer after my sophomore year of high school, everything changed when my mom forced me to attend jazz band camp. Band camp was the first time that I was around kids who cared very little about the normal behavior I'd spent my whole life seeking and trying to conform to. Among the mob of band geeks, I gave myself permission to be myself, to tentatively show what I thought was my obnoxious personality. To my surprise, my fellow dorks loved it. I was being myself for the first time. I made lifelong friendships, even earning the nickname Saxy Girl. Band camp was a breakthrough. The first time I realized I could define normal as being myself and even be loved for it. A strength I carried through and beyond high school. My first night in college, I unabashedly knocked on every single door in my residence hall. Hi, my name's Kelsey. What's your name? Would you like to hang out with me? Oh my gosh, we should go down to the lounge. Let's go. We're all getting a group together. Let's hang out. That was how I was selected to be a resident advisor for the next year. I started to see that being my vivacious Energizer Bunny self was a strength. After finally making groups of friends in school, deep within me, I still believed I didn't deserve any of this. I'm a flat-chested band geek. Romantic relationships? That seems impossible. Someone will figure out that I'm an imposter. Everything will fall apart. My worst fears came true. Max, my best friend from high school. He started to date my new closest friend in college, Ellie. My two best friends dating. It was perfect. That lasted a couple quarters. Then Ellie broke up with Max just before summer break. During 4th of July weekend, I was camping on my family's property with some friends, including Max. In the middle of the night, while I was asleep, Max drunkenly falls on my cot and just starts mashing his face into mine. No consent. Nothing. That was my first kiss. The next morning, he nodded at my bruised lips and said, "We're cool, yeah?" I nodded, unsure what to do. It felt wrong to keep this a secret. So I told Ellie, my best friend, the truth. I even sent her flowers. I felt terrible. Ellie felt betrayed because I broke girl code. And Max said I ruined his chance at getting her back. So both cut me out of their lives. It left me reeling. I felt totally responsible because I believed them. I believed that this was my fault. I was abandoned and wary of making mistakes ever again. My sophomore year, I went through fall RA training. It was a powerfully loving and healing community right when I needed it most. Things seemed to be settling in my world. Until one night, when my phone exploded with texts. "Saxy girl, you would be the best booty call ever. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and do things very differently this summer. This could be a chance to blossom into the woman I know you want to become. Let's keep this between the two of us so we don't hurt Ellie. You owe me that after all. Come home, I want to be with you." What the fuck? After everything that happened, he couldn't be serious. But it was Max. Someone I trusted, deeply cared about, and thought I lost forever. Not to mention my first and only kiss. No one had ever expressed interest in me like that before. Something didn't feel right, but I fiercely held on to my naive notion of rebuilding our friendship. Maybe this could be a way to earn his forgiveness, and things could go back to the way they were. Besides, who would want you once they got to know the real you? A geek, a spaz, and a virgin? He knows you and wants you. This is your shot. So I said yes. I went to Planned Parenthood to get my first birth control prescription. In the waiting area, I chuckled when I overheard some girls complain about remembering to take a pill every day. At least I know how to do that part, I thought, paying for the plastic container lined with little pills. I kept my promise to Max and told no one about our plan. A few weeks later, I drove about 400 miles across the state of Washington. 6 hours in the car. The air felt heavy with expectation as I crunched through the snow toward Max's dorm. After a stiff hug and stilted small talk, we walked into his tiny, filthy dorm room and sat on the bed. We watched a horror film in complete silence. Not touching. How romantic. As the final credits rolled, I broke the quiet by asking Max if we could talk, my stomach in knots. His eyes met mine with a burning intensity. "You don't want to hurt my feelings, do you?" he said quietly, cocking his head to the side and tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Why is he being so weird? I thought, immediately countered with, "Can you just chill? Remember, you owe him." Aloud, I said, "I just want to make you happy. That's why I came all this way." Max grabbed the back of my head and crushed his mouth against mine, then tightly gripped my wrists together, pinning them above my head. I felt the weight of his body pressed on top of me. He yanked apart my buttons with his other hand. This isn't what I imagined, I thought, instantly choked down with, "You and your childish fantasies. How would you know? This is what you wanted. Sex. Focus." The internal battle to maintain control raged on. As my last piece of clothing fell to the floor, I froze. Floating outside of my body, I heard someone else asking Max in my voice, "What am I supposed to do?" Max was incredulous and angry because he was struggling to get it up. He said, "You should just know. It's literally the most natural thing you can do. God, what's wrong with you?" Ignoring my tears, Max roughly forced himself inside of me over and over again, shoving me into many positions. I retreated into the recesses of my mind. He finished. You know, that feeling of being a black hole again? Empty. Numb. The next day, my brain continued to keep me company on the long drive back to my college campus. This is what you wanted. You lost control. Great, you're not a virgin anymore. But who will love you now? What kind of freak doesn't know how to have sex? This is your fault. Many hours later, I parked and walked into the dusty stillness of my dorm room. My sanctuary felt different as I closed the door behind me. I checked my phone. Nothing from Max. Crawling into my comforting bedsheets that smelled like lavender, I scrolled through Facebook on my laptop. Minutes before, Ellie had posted a picture from the date she just had with Max. They'd Skyped a few hours after I left Max's dorm room. They were getting back together. I tried closing my eyes. Images and flashes of the night before seared behind my dark lids. Something rose within me. I grabbed my pillow and let out hollow, bellowing screams, like vomiting up deeply buried truth. For the first time, I tried to listen to what my body was trying to tell me instead of control it. Maybe I was normal and what happened to me wasn't. I called my RA friends to come over and told them what I'd hidden over the last few weeks, learning what it felt like to share my story with people who had earned it. Today, about 7 years after I was first sexually assaulted, I am still working on honoring what my body tells me and believing that I am worthy of belonging and love because of who I am, including my disability. Even with pills, I will always struggle with my beautiful Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes. And I will always be that weird, lonely spaz of a kid who threw up when I got too excited and tried to earn friends by telling people what to do and feeding them. In my journey to love and accept that wise, sweet, tenacious little girl, I've become my own best friend. And I will never stop fighting for a world where she and every person belongs.
First time on the VAMP stage, Kelsey Schultz.